Yes, yes. Welcome to the Quick United Talk show. I couldn't do this yesterday, obviously, but yeah, man. It's the Little Football TV, and yeah, I mean, it is what it is, guys. It's all United Talk, so everyone is welcome to engage and throw in your comments if you want to. Throw your likes, throw your benters. It's all welcome. Everyone's welcome, but this is strictly Men United Talk. I mean, for me, this is not really a show. Um, I was gonna host it as a show, but I feel like certain things need to be said. With whatever's happening at the club currently, it's a shambles. And this is me ranting out now because I don't know, but I feel like the media is more focused um, on this whole, teams walking out, but we forget that we don't have a team that's gonna be worth walking out and watching this season. Firstly, I want to tackle points that really matter because I feel like a lot of these channels are running with stories of players walking, leaving the stadium before the game ends, instead of focusing on the shambles of a transfer window that we've had. This is another shambles of a transfer window. This is another manager that's going to be thrown under the bus. So essentially, this is what this show is all about. And it's about me shifting that media narrative that is constantly, thrown up in our faces, from your Sky Sports, from your whatever. All these guys are throwing the same stories over and over again, but, because of an agenda driven streak. People are focused on the more of the players walking, leaving early, leaving the game early and going home before, they get traffic. And they forget that, we have a weaker team that we've had the team that we currently have is weaker than last season's team. We haven't really signed players to address the players that have left. So essentially, we've missed out on several players too. Darwin Nunes has gone to Liverpool. Justin Timber has decided to stay with Ajax Amsterdam. We've been dragging a De Jong signing for 6 weeks. And people want to overlook all these things. This is bad, guys. Like, this is bad for people who are in those positions who should be getting these transfers under, you know, to they should be getting these transfers done. But, it is what it is. That incompetence is overlooked because the media is now pushing this narrative that, all these problems are caused by Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, you get rid of Ronaldo, you're still going to have these problems. So how the hell can you point out and say that it's only down to one person? When it's been happening before he came to this club, they like pushing this player power and sort of thing. They forget that this player power was there even before this guy came in. So how is it one person's fault? Please tell me. How is it one person's fault? Because I'd like to sit with one of these journalists and one of these analysts, football analysts who come on Sky Sports and actually ask them to please constructively state as to why is it a one person's problem when this is a major board problem. This is a club issue. This is a structural issue. But yet again, it's one person. It's one individual. It's this. It's never going to be solved that way. Because when you want to solve something, you look at the entirety of something. You don't look at one part of it. Because if you look at one part of it, the other part rots, and then you have to fix that part. And then when you fix that next part, the other part gets rotten as well. It never comes to an end. It's an ongoing cycle that never ends. So this is why I'm pushing this. I'm going to try and push this narrative where now we turn the attention back to the board. Because this transfer window has been disgusting, to say the least. It has been abysmal. It has been seriously. Like, I can't even fathom what everyone else is thinking if I'm thinking this way. Because if we look at it, this board again is naive. We got rid of Ralph Ragnick. I know people are gonna say quick to say that Ralph Ragnick was not brought to be a manager. specifically. He was brought here to oversee what is wrong with the club so that he can start implementing the changes and help the next manager that's going to come in. We always knew that he was a temporary manager who was going to move into a DOF role, sort of like a consultancy role where he's going to look at things that at bringing in players and bringing the right players through. That was his job. His job was not to manage his team. So I'm not trying to hear someone say, oh, because he failed as being a manager, that, he's not good enough to be a DOF. Two separate roles, by the way. Those are two separate roles. So he is a DOF. He is a proven director of football. He has been a director of football at one of the Red Bulls franchises in Leipzig and Salzburg. Salzburg being from Australian league, and then Leipzig from the German league. He was the director of football at those clubs. He's the one who built those clubs. For you guys to know what those clubs look like now, it's because of Ralf Rangnick. So I'm not trying to hear this thing. Let's shift that narrative out of the way. They got rid of Ralf Rangnick, and they entrusted John Murtock, who's never been a DOF in his entire life, to come into that seat and to take over all player recruitments, all player ongoing contracts. And guess what? We're back here again. Incompetency. Ed Woodward didn't leave, but Ed Woodward left physically, but he didn't leave mentally, because the club still functions the same way they were functioning under Ed Woodward. Nothing has really changed, guys. The only thing that has really changed is the manager being given more power. But guess what? Ten Hag has been given too much power, because there's such thing as too much power. You can't give a manager the kind of power he has, because right now we're sitting without a midfield. You can't tell me Eriksen improves that midfield. He may improve certain aspects of those midfield, but he doesn't improve that midfield entirely. That's where the problem with Man United is. It's right in that midfield. We're still playing with Fred and McTominay. How many times have I come on here, and not just me, several other guys who don't want to admit it, came onto these shows and they said the same thing. Fred and McTominay, these guys are not good enough. You can't get through a season with these guys, but yet we're still persisting with these guys this season. These guys are going to start on Sunday. On Sunday, we will be watching the same midfield that we know has failed constantly last season and the season before. You get what I'm saying? So I want to move this narrative away from the Ronaldo. Look, listen to this media. They think the problem is with these media and journalists and who are trying to push this narrative. They always look for someone, an individual to blame. They never look at a situation entirely. What is the problem? It's a structural problem. But guess what? Some of these journalists are actually bought by the Man United owners. Some of these journalists are bought by Man United owners. It happens all the time. That's where corruption comes in. This is why you get one side of the story every single time in the mainstream media. So this is what I want to move, guys. This is what I want to move. And I've realized channels are not doing this. Several channels, there's only one or two channels that have picked this up. That it's constantly a blame has been laid on one player. I'm moving that out of the way. I'm focusing on how of a shambles this transfer window has been. This club is talking about a rebuild. These owners came out and say, oh, we brought in a new manager. Yeah, they brought in a new manager. Fair enough. We're going to do things differently. We're going to function differently. Ed Woodward is out of the door. We brought in, Richard Arnold to take over from Ed Woodward as the new CEO. We brought in John Murtock to take over as DOF. Guess what? It's still the same thing. It's still the same mess, because the structure has not even changed a bit. The structure has not changed a bit. All they did was tweak it, because that's what they all know how to do. They all know how to tweak things, because they knew with a guy like Ralf Rangnick, who was already calling out the structure as it being a mess. They had to get rid of that guy, because guess what? To build and to destroy and build something, you're gonna have to take a huge knock financially. These guys don't want to spend that kind of money. So hence why they wanted to always take the short routes. And that goes for transfers. That goes for anything. If your owners essentially don't want to spend money, you see them by taking shortcuts. You understand? They can't. They can never do something or commit to something 100%. It's never been. I've never seen that from Man United ever since these guys got here. I've never seen that, and they've been here since 2005. So this window, it just sums up where Man United are going. And I did say that this window was the most crucial one. It was the most crucial one. If they screwed this one over, we're not coming back. Sad to say, under this ownership, we're done. We're absolutely done. We're not coming back from this because you can see where this is going. It's season after season, seeing the exact same things happen, moving slow in the window. Yes, they're back in Ten Hag. But when does it come? Where does it? Where do we draw the line and say that this is not acceptable? Because I'm telling you now, we're the ones sitting there and saying this is not acceptable. Other clubs are laughing at us. Other clubs won't take us seriously. Guess what? If you want to be taken seriously in anything, you have to show competence. You have to show that you guys know what you're doing. Guess what? Man United didn't know what they were doing for the last 3, 4, in fact, for the last 8 years, we didn't know what we were doing. After Sir Alex and David Gill left, we didn't know what we were doing. We're done. So it's a rebuild. We've got 3 players in. We still got the mess from last season. There's some players, obviously, who left, and those players, majority of them left on free contracts. Now, let's bear that in mind. If these players were not just bad at recruiting, we're bad at releasing players. We put them on these high wages. You know what I'm saying? And by the time we put them on these high wages, other clubs can't afford them. So what? We can't sell them. So what? We forced to keep them. It's the same cycle. So now it looks like the cycle's not going to come to an end because this is how these bankers run football club. They run Man United the same way that they run their NFL teams, ongoings and outgoings. This is how American franchise teams run essentially. This is how they run their clubs. You know what I'm saying? So it's sad, guys. It's sad, but it is what it is. And, we're back here with the same problems. The season's about to start. We still have Fred and McTominay. We still haven't signed a forward. We still have several players who are still here who shouldn't be here. So tell me, where is the problem? I want to ask someone there. Where is who, like, for example, who is the common denominator here? It's the board. It's the board. Because I'm not trying to hear that they back in Ten Hag. I'm not trying to hear that they back in Ten Hag. Because, if there was proper structure, Ten Hag wouldn't have this much power. So you can say what you want to say. We can all sit here and blame the manager for chasing De Jong the entire summer and putting his team at risk and blame him for being naive. But you don't give this manager this much power if you have a proper structure for him. You get what I'm saying? He is given this much power because John Murtough doesn't know what he's doing. That is why he's given this much power. They're relying on him now. This is why there's no plan B, there's no plan C. They're relying on this manager to want specific players, and if he doesn't get these players, we're screwed. Let me tell you something. Now we're hearing news, quote, we're hearing news that Man United are trying to sign Anthony and and they're complaining that his fees is too high. Oh, well, guess what? You obviously knew his fee was going to get higher or that Ajax was going to place him at a very high fee when as the longer the transfer gets nearer to closing. You knew this. You absolutely knew this. With this stuff, you cannot write this. You cannot write this with this club. How incompetent can you be to not know that a selling club when it sells its player, you know this club sells its players every season. And you know for a fact that the earlier you come, you're going to spend less money than when, as opposed to them having to release this guy later on in the window. That's basic common sense. That is basic common sense. And this club cannot apply basic common sense. This is the problem I have. They can't do that. You see, this is the problem of placing bankers in roles that are not needed. This is the problem of placing bankers in footballing roles, because they do not belong there. They absolutely do not belong there. So I'm not trying to hear this. I'm not trying to hear this narrative of saying, oh, Ronaldo, Delo, and these guys. Listen, that is a problem that's been blown out of proportion. These things have happened at bigger football clubs. I'm sorry to say bigger football clubs, but your Real Madrid, you know what I'm saying? It has happened before at Real Madrid. It has happened before at Barcelona. It has happened before. If you've lived long enough, you know about these things. And these are issues that were nipped under the bud. These are issues that were not even that huge. But since it's Man United, and, you know, obviously certain media outlets want to push certain agendas, you know, it becomes this whole big thing. We forget that the biggest thing is our shambles of a transfer window. It's our shambles of the running of this club. It's our shambles of the inability to be ready for a full competitive season. And the most dire competitive season that we yet to face with the scheduled World Cup that comes in the middle of a season. And we're still acting like, oh no, we've got more games to play where there's gonna be injuries. There's gonna be all these things. This is gonna be an unreal season. This is gonna be the most craziest season we've yet to have since the COVID one. No one is discussing this. Why isn't anyone running with this thing? Because this is what I'm seeing. I'm foreseeing a huge disaster here. These guys are happy. Ten Hag is already talking about youngsters. How he's gonna bring in these youngsters are gonna be thrown under the bus. This is not. No disrespect to Ajax and the Eredivisie, but Premier League is a different animal. The Premier League is a different animal. This is the most watched league in the world, the most profitable league in world football. You understand? This is the ultimate. This is the elite. If you're a footballer who's going to the Premier League, you know that's the most pressure you're gonna face, because most people watch that league more than every other league. It's the most broadcasted league in the world. So he needs to understand that, and I don't think he really does. I think it may be a case where we see him underestimate the league for the first season. He gets humbled, and then he's like, okay, I've got humbled, I've learned, and then he learns. I'm telling you now, it could be a case where we have to write off the season as well, this coming season. I'm telling you now, because I feel like the entire situation has been underestimated. I saw it with the Ten Hag. I mean, with Ralf Rangnick being gone, I knew that this was going to be a disaster, because with him being gone, you knew that there was no structure left. There's no football structure left. You're now dependent on John Murtock, who's never been a DOF. You're dependent on a Darren Fletcher, who's still young and who has no experience being a technical director. You also have a CEO who's delegating everything to those guys and who's saying you guys will handle it. But guess what? Those guys don't know the work either. You understand? This is where people are missing the point here. Man United fans need to get rid of this. Take it out of there, put it back in here. Because guess what? Our problems are bigger than Cristiano Ronaldo. And that's what I wanted to say. You guys need to wake up. Protests need to be brought in, because this club is we've been run into the ground. This is a season that we're prepared to write off already. This is a season I know I don't have expectations anymore, because I can see the structures is all wrong. Now we're getting stories that De Jong is linked with Chelsea. What is happening? What is happening? Can someone point what is exactly happening? This is why I'm telling you now. Now there's news coming out, because now De Jong is linked with Chelsea, and now people are getting hysterical because the season's starting on Sunday. We're playing Brighton on Sunday. Yeah, we may win that game, but you still got Liverpool on the third game. Liverpool are gonna trash us with this team. Liverpool are gonna, and I feel like fans are just waiting for this game. Why not protest now? This is the time where we protest and say you came into the season, you're telling us about a rebuild, and then you release 8 or 9 players and you bring in only 3, and you call this a rebuild. You bring in 3 players and you call this a rebuild, guys. Let that sink in. They call this a rebuild when it's only 3 players that have been brought in. I'm tired of this. I'm tired, and I'm gonna lay it down, and I'm not scared of being blocked or by any of these journalists, because I do comment on their stories and everything. But I really don't. I really could give a damn about it. We are a shambles, and the real problems are not being addressed out here in the media. Everyone is focused on Ronaldo. Get Ronaldo out of your mouths and focus on what is the real problem. You get Ronaldo. That's why I feel like Ronaldo needs to go. Rightfully so. Ronaldo, if he wants to leave, he needs to go. And when he goes, maybe they'll start focusing on what the real problem is. They'll realize, oh, he's gone, but why is it still toxic? Why are there still problems at the club? You understand? Then it's like, oh, he wasn't. Then they'll be like, oh no, he wasn't the only problem. Oh, we can see what else is the problem. And it's like, it's too late by then, isn't it? The season is already done by the time you guys realize what the problem is. You've already sacrificed another season. We've sacrificed 2 seasons. This board was prepared to sacrifice 2 seasons. And guess what? They'll pay for this because there's consequences for missing out on the Champions League 2 years running. And that is Adidas taking half of its, what is it? I think it's 35% of it. It's 35% of what they usually give us season in, season out. It's going to be removed for good until their contract ends. That was the deal. So the Glazers either way are going to take a knock. And we'll see how that goes. But that's what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus on the shambles of a transfer window. We've let alternative targets go to other clubs. We were focusing on De Jong, and I think part of the blame, that's why I said in the beginning of the video, part of the blame needs to also go to Ten Hag. He's my manager. I'll support him. I'll back him. He's the kind of manager I wanted at this football club. A person who can get the best out of the players he has. A person that can play an attractive style of football, who has a philosophy, a direct one, by the way, and who isn't scared of player power and whatnot. He commands respect, and he's a winner. That's the kind of manager I wanted. And I will give him this blame. I won't be blindsided by the fact that I like the guy, and I really do like the guy, and I've taken a huge liking, and have watched and I started watching Ajax Amsterdam again because of him. But he needs to take part of the blame here. The board too, because it's all easy to say it's all Ten Hag's fault, because guess what? The board was like, okay, we're gonna give him more power. So when everything goes wrong, you guys blame him. No, the board is also to blame because they got rid of Ralf Rangnick, who's supposed to help this manager, who's supposed to be the middleman between the board and him and Ten Hag, and make sure that things are done accordingly. But guess what? You got rid of the guy who's the brains behind the operation, and you've got people who are trying to mimic him in John Murtough, trying to copy his ideals and ideas. And guess what? You can't just copy an idea of someone who's just been here for a few months. You can't. This guy was supposed to be here because he has experience of building football clubs, of making football clubs self-sufficient. And we got rid of that guy. So for me, we reap what we sow. Is what it is. Anyone wanted Ralf Rangnick gone, you deserve what is getting here at Man United. You deserve what you're going to get for this upcoming seasons. Because guess what? John Murtough is not competent. John Murtough is not competent. Richard Arnold is not competent. Darren Fletcher is not competent. So guess what? You're going to get mediocrity. You guys deserve this. 100%, you deserve whatever's happening now, and you're going to deserve it. For those who didn't want all of this to happen, and for those who wanted Ralph Ragnick to stay, are the ones who are unfortunately going to feel the brunt as well. So we're all losing at the end of the day. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. We're all losing. But guess what? This is Man United, guys, and I really don't have expectations for this season, and I'm just gonna be up front with it. I have zero expectations this season, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, we've got a game against Brighton. I know people. A win might cheer up a couple of people, and the football is the only thing that we're gonna probably enjoy from Man United, because the football will improve. We won't be sitting there and trying to take our eyes out, you know what I'm saying? But like what we were doing last season. But that's the only thing that you could see an improvement in. But guess what, guys? It is what it is. And, I'm calling out for major protests. If fans want to see players come into the door and don't want to see the same crop of players coming out of the tunnels week in, week out again for a straight second season after what they did to us. Because I feel like people forget what these players did to us last season. If you guys don't want to see this same crop of players coming out week in, week out again, the players that you cannot trust, the players that down tools against Man City, thrown 2 managers under the bus, I can name so many things I don't even want to talk about, dressing room leaks, putting their PR teams ahead of, the club's well-being, looking after their own interests and not trying to be team players and disobeying managers, and helping at rotting this club. If you are prepared to not want to see these guys coming week in, week out again for another season, protest. Because that's the only way, that's the only language these Glazers and the board understand, is when players go out on a protest. Look how Richard Arnold quickly stopped the other protests from happening, because there was a planned protest that was about to happen, and Richard Arnold went to a pub. He went to a pub and addressed a couple of fans that this is what they're doing, this is what they're trying to do. Because guess what? Protests aren't good for the image of the club. If there's constant protests every single time, then something has to give. This is why they don't want protests, and that's the only way that these Man United fans will be able to see a competent board, is if when they protest. And you don't protest after the window shut. You protest right now, so that they act now before the window shuts in August. End of this month, actually. So, yeah, man. I mean, I just wanted to give a different and fresh approach as to the one that the media and everyone else is running with. I'm moving away. I'm way past an individual at this point. I'm way past an individual player. I'm way past an individual's antics. For me, it's about the structure that these individuals are brought into. In any organization, before I close this out, I'm gonna speak this out. In any organization, if there's no structure, there's no rules, there's no responsibilities, there's no code of conduct, there's absolutely nothing that governs any sort of policy in that organization. Guess what? What are you gonna get? You're gonna get an unruly staff. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's staff, whether it's learners, in schools. Imagine a school without rules. Imagine a workplace without rules. That's exactly what Man United is. And people don't want to read into this, but that's exactly what it is. And that kind of environment, it produces toxicity. It produces a lack of accountability, lack of responsibility, lack of performance. You understand? It doesn't matter how you look at it. Every organization is governed by bodies and policies. Every organization, not just one, every sector. This does not exclude football at all. It does not exclude football at all. So let's get the narrative out of the way. I just wanted to point that out. Whether Ronaldo goes or leaves, whether he leaves, or rather, should I say, whether he leaves or stay, it's still gonna be the same thing. Before he came, we were complaining about what? The same thing. So yeah, man. I mean, guys, otherwise enjoy the rest of your evening. That was United Talk podcast rant, whatever you want to call it. But that was just my rant because I had to say something. I was tired of the media narrative that's been pushed right now and what other channels are pushing this whole walkout thing. It's not just about a walkout thing. You understand? These things happen all the time, but because it's magnified times 10, so that we forget that there's other problems, there's bigger problems at the club right now. There's the playing staff. You forget that these guys, like your Ronaldos, the reason why they wanted to leave, we've always said this, it's not in defending him at all. We're not defending him at all. The reason why he wanted to leave was because they lack ambition. Guess what? 3 signings in a rebuild, and you call that ambition. If anything, this is justifying why he wants to leave more than... This is why I can't back the club anymore. This is why I'm like, you know what? I don't like the guy for how he wants to leave, not pitching up for preseason, not being professional in some instances. But you have to look at the organization that he's doing it to. And you'll be like, I'm not surprised anymore at this point. Look at the organization he's doing it to. Because that's where the bigger problem is. And these fans will learn the hard way, unfortunately. When this guy leaves and they still see the same problems. When Ronaldo leaves and they see the same problems happening. You understand? What are they going to say now? Who are you going to blame next? This is why I brought this up. This is why I did this show. I didn't have to do this show. This is why I came here and did it. Because I saw that this is what the media is trying to do. They're trying to divert this whole situation onto an individual player and say he's toxic, he's this, he's that. Forgetting that a season is starting. You get rid of this player, fine. We're not opposed. I'm not opposed to him going. I said he should go and they should let him go, rightfully so. But guess what? They choose to still keep him. Because guess what? Everything that he has done in trying to leave and saying the club lacks ambition and questioning us as a football club, it's exposing itself. So I'm not trying to be here and defending. I'm not defending an individual. I'm looking at the football club and how much of a shambles we are. That's what I'm doing. So if you want to come at me with comments like, I'm a Ronaldo stan, I'm this, I'm that. I'm not. I'm nobody's stan. It was done with Pogba. It was done before Pogba. People act like what Ronaldo is doing hasn't been done under Wayne Rooney. Where was the outrage when Wayne Rooney was offering himself to Man City? And people had to legit go to his house. Man United fans had to go to his house directly and stand outside his gate and then tell him that, if you leave, we're going to kill you. If you leave, we're going to kill you. Rio Ferdinand also did the exact same thing when he didn't want to sign a new contract. Guess what? He wanted to run his contract down. People forget these things. He did the exact same thing. Fans were you know what I'm saying? They were sending him death threats, saying if you leave, we're going to kill you. Nobody's saying these things. Because guess what? Ronaldo's a foreigner. Same thing with Pogba. He's a foreigner. He's not British. British players were always protected. This is why the guy, Rio Ferdinand, is like, hey, I'm not one to say anything. He doesn't want to comment too much on this thing because he knows he was in an almost similar situation where he was not signing a new contract, where he was disobeying Sir Alex and he was saying, I'm not signing a new contract. I'm just going to let my contract run. I want to leave. So they know this. This has been happening. This is why I'm saying that these young fans who just came in today and some of these fans who decided to develop some amnesia have all of a sudden forgot all of these things. Because I'm telling you now, it hasn't happened just once. Ronaldo is not the first to do it. This is why a lot of Man United legends are not really speaking up because they've seen this before. Only those people, those media people with agendas and whatnot who are pushing this narrative and certain United fans who just have agendas are the ones who are also running with these stories. They're the ones who are trying to target one player, thinking, oh, it's disgusting, he's doing this, oh, it's this, it's that, it's that. Yeah, get rid of him. Yeah, let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of him and see that these problems are going to all of a sudden just disappear out of thin air like this. You guess what? You'll be back here and saying, "Oh, it's the board is the owners." Guess what? You heard it from me. These fans will be coming back and saying it's the board, it's the owners. But why does it always have to take it? Why does it always have to take so much time for people to realize what the problem is? Because guess what? The common denominator isn't going anywhere. The Glazers are still here. The board is a shambles. There's no DOF. I don't really rate John Murdoch as a DOF because he's never been one, essentially. So, yeah, man, guys. I mean, that's just my show. I'm closing it now, and yeah, guys. I hope you guys like, share, comment. You're free to do whatever, man, guys. It's Lesser Football on YouTube as well. So yeah, I'm broadcasting on YouTube as well. So yeah, it's the United Talk. You guys have a pleasant and lovely evening. Peace.